Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Carlo Levi Minzi. As you know, if you have followed my previous live streaming, I'm a classical pianist, and I am using this channel, this YouTube channel, to talk about my work and in the meantime to try to make people appreciate classical music and hoping that many more people will listen to it. There are not so many attendants at classical concerts now, and therefore I am trying through this relatively new technology to try to persuade people to go and attend at classical concerts when lockdown is finished, of course, and looking forward to have attendance to my concerts, and not only to mine, of course, attendance to classical music and buying CDs and downloading files from the internet platforms. As I explained, I am on this YouTube channel, and you can find my files on the major platforms such as Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, and so on. My files are everywhere, including the Philippines, but also China and South Korea. And therefore, you can follow me on those platforms, download my files, and of course, I have a Facebook page, Carlo Levi Minzi Pianist. Please put a like on it. And please, I know that you are already many. We have already 1,090 subscribers, which is really very much.
We don't talk about that one.
And please ask your friends to subscribe to this channel. We must be more and more. This time, I am talking from Italy, and it's now around 2 o'clock. Is 2:06 more precisely. This afternoon, therefore, we're going to talk about something I have just uploaded on my YouTube channel, also because we were celebrating anniversary. On March 31st, the anniversary of birth, the birth anniversary of Johann Sebastian Bach.
Our anniversary, maybe.
Not birth anniversary. 31st of March. My wife is reminding that on March 30th was our wedding anniversary, but we are talking about Bach this time.
Okay,
And on March 31st is the birth anniversary of Johann Sebastian Bach. And later we will talk about Johannes Brahms, whose death anniversary occurs on April 3rd. And let's start from the older one. Johann Sebastian Bach was born on March 31st, 1685. So some 325 years ago, many. And is considered to be the father of the classical music. In a certain extent, he is. I will summarize his life just to let you understand who the man was. Bach comes from a music dynasty. The first known Bach musician was a man by name Veit, who lived 2 centuries before Johann Sebastian. And the last member of his dynasty, Wilhelm Friedrich Ernest, died in 1845. No more non-Bach. This means that the dynasty lasted about 400 years, throughout generation, of course. Bach, of course, as you can easily imagine, was the son of a musician. Some brothers became musicians too, and some kids of his became musicians too. He was born in this musical family, studied music. Of course, at the time, musicians were studying at home, were learning the craft from parents, from relatives. So Bach started his music education at home. He studied organ and violin, and was considered to be a very good organist, and pursued this career. At a certain point of his life, very young, he decided that he wanted to study with the most famous organist of the time. But and so the legend says that he walked 300 miles, means almost 500 kilometers, to go to listen to him and to stay with him to study. So he studied with this Dietrich Buxtehude, a very famous organist and composer. So he had the best possible training at the time. He was born in a small village of East Germany by name Eisenach, but eventually he moved to Leipzig, where he served in the main church as organist and composer. That means that he was on duty for the church music for every Sunday service. So he had to compose a new piece every week, to have it rehearsed by the local musicians and performed for the Sunday service. That was a really remarkable, heavy job. In the meantime, he was writing other music for different purposes. In other times, he worked for the court of Cotton, where he was writing music for the music for the concerts in the palace. And so he had different employments in his life. So he had occasion to write sacred music, to write orchestral music, and to write music for a few instruments, what we call chamber music. So his production is very big, as you can easily imagine. He was a very prolific composer, worked a lot, and wrote a lot of music for the most various purposes. He was at the time he was very famous, and was working a lot. Just to give you an example, when he was working and he was a very hard worker. One of the reasons why he was so working so hard was that he had 21 kids. Of course, not all of them survived. At the time, kids were in danger every single day because of the bad quality of life. In any event, he had two wives. One died after bearing 7 children, and the second gave him 14 more. At least 3 of them became musicians and became very important. And he was the only one working there, so he had to support this big family. So he had to work very hard, and was a hard worker. While was working for the church, he was playing in a cafe in the night to make some extra money. Was a very hard life. We will talk about Brahms later, and we see how hard was Brahms' life too. Many musicians had a very hard life because musicians were badly paid as they are today. There was a period, some 50, 60 years ago, musicians were very well paid. Now it's no longer the case, and it is, and it was not at the time. So thank you for joining us, Dominos Gaming and Sura Asami. Thank you, Akavi TV, who is my main sponsor, and thank you for joining us. And don't forget to ask your friends to subscribe to our channel. To this channel where you can find a lot of music. Quite often I upload new files, and I hope that you join this channel not only to see my work but also to appreciate classical music. Later, I will tell you why classical music is so important. There are so many reasons, not only for me, but for the whole population of this world. In any event, let's go back to Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach, we are talking about. We shouldn't say Bach because there were so many, as I said. There were Bach from the mid 15th century till mid 19th century, so 400 years dynasty. As we said, Johann Sebastian had 21 kids and had to support. So he was working for different people while working in church. He wrote a mass for another person. He was in Germany. There were two groups. One was the majority were Protestants, were following the church reformation, but there were a lot of Catholics too. So he was writing for both. He was a Protestant, and most of his sacred music was written for the Protestant church. But nevertheless, he wrote a mass for a Catholic prince. Well, in Latin we say pecunia non olet, means money doesn't stink, and he needed a lot. And he wrote for a coffee shop. He wrote a cantata for the coffee shop where he was playing in the night to to make some extra money. So he had to work very hard to make sure to make a living and to secure an education to the kids. As I said, the three kids of his became musicians and became famous at the time. And three of them became at the time more famous than Johann Sebastian himself. The older one, Carl Philipp Emanuel, became a harpsichordist, clavicordist, and was working for the king of Prussia, Frederick II. We will talk about it later because we will meet both the son and this king, this emperor of Prussia again. While um, while another one, Wilhelm Friedman, who died young, was maybe the most talented of the three, but had no time to demonstrate this enough because he died young. Also, the third, Johann Christian, who settled in London and became very popular there. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, when he was a kid, traveled to London with his father and met him there. And so he had the occasion to appreciate his music. And when Johann Christian died, he died relatively young too. In 1781, he decided to use a theme of his in one of his piano concerto as an homage to the colleague. In any event, Johann Sebastian wrote music of every kind, cantatas mainly for the church, a lot, you cannot count. Organ music, prelude and fugues, and different kind of organ music, of course. And of course, masses and other sacred works. But also, there is a production for the harpsichord instrument, which is an ancestor of the piano, of the instrument I play. Piano, the instrument I play, was invented in 1698 by an Italian man by name Bartolomeo Cristofori, and was patented 2 years later. Bach saw some of them in the shop of a builder by name Zilberman. This man had developed the patent and had created his own instrument. But Johann Sebastian, who saw the instrument, didn't like them at all. Maybe his idea of music was so different. Thank you, Giorgio Rodolfo Marini, for following us. He's a very close friend of mine. He's a conductor. We are working together, and soon I will upload some music together. Giorgio Rodolfo Marini was kidding me around, saying next time in Russian. He doesn't realize that my international audience is mainly a non-Italian speaking audience, and therefore I speak English to allow an international audience to understand, and using his English as the most common international language. Uh, Thank you, Giorgio, for joining us anyway, and looking forward to have a live streaming together. He's a great conductor, top class man, and thank you for joining us again. And please, and please ask your friends to my to my YouTube channel, and join us in appreciation of classical music, not only mine, of course. I would like to I would like to have everybody appreciating the classical music. Let's go back to Johann Sebastian Bach for a while. He, I was saying that he wrote a lot of harpsichord music. He had met some prototypes of pianos in Silbermann's shop, and he didn't like them at all. And this is the reason why I usually don't play Bach music. Many colleagues of mine do, because they have a different approach to music, and they are, in a certain extent, less rigorous, and they think that the Bach music, Bach music is so beautiful and deserves to be played. This is true, but this doesn't mean that there are so many harpsichord players around who can do the job. So we don't need to drive them. Also, I think that playing Bach music on the harpsichord, on the piano instead of on a harpsichord, is a sort of way of betraying this music, because you take it out of its natural environment. In an event, this is my own idea, and